You go, Michael.
Good. Well, okay. So when I was thinking about this topic, I was looking back on my experience going fly fishing for trout at night. And this is something that I used to do a lot more than I do now. Now, because of my health issues, there's a couple things that I do. One is that I don't go out alone so much anymore. I used to go out, alone and with no backup and no thing, middle of the night, I'd get home at 2 or 3 in the morning and I was all happy to do that. But now, since I've had my health issues, I don't go out alone. And the other thing is I don't go out much at night anymore because there are inherent dangers in going out fishing at night. Really, I would recommend that you really have to know the place that you're going really well. You have to know where you can cross the stream, where the beaver holes are, where the dangers are, where to put your back cast so you don't get caught up in the bushes. All sorts of problems present themselves at night. And because it's dark, you can't really see very well. So you need a flashlight, both to put new flies on and to get home. Old days, I used to go down to the Crowsnest at night in the evening. And it would be dark. And I would be coming back using my little flashlight to light the path. And I would be out there fishing on a stream, just basically fishing by sound. Sometimes there's some moonlight so you can see things. Sometimes there's no moonlight. It's dark. You're just listening for the trout rising. And then you're fishing to where you think the slurping noise came from. So I don't do this as much as I used to anymore. I would like to get back to it because goodness knows there's some really, really good trout that feed at night. And one time on the Crowsnest, there was this particular little eddy, foam eddy that I used to love fishing. And I walked down there. It was upstream from the steel bridge, downstream from the highway bridge. This one spot, there were fish there. I knew there were fish there. So I went out at night. I went and I got to it. It was not a very long cast. It was only about 10 feet or so. But I cast out into that eddy and a fish ate my fly. I could feel it. I landed the fish. I have no idea whether it was a brown or a rainbow, but it was there and I caught it. And I didn't turn on my light to see what it was. So, because I was busy holding the fish and letting it go, releasing it. So I was gonna do this whole thing based on my experiences. I've also done a lot of night fishing on the Red Deer River, used to be a favorite of mine, and also the Bow River. And it was fun. It was really, really good because there's some big fish that play at night. But since I've got these problems, I can't do it as much anymore. And the times that I've tried night fishing on Stauffer Creek, let me tell you, the willows that you can avoid during the day, just sort of reach out and grab your fly at night. And it's not so much fun trying to get your fly out of the trees at night. So I was going to do this whole presentation based on my experience. And then I told my friend Wally Lutz, and he said, well, what research have you done? What books have you read? What have you done? And I said, well, none. So I said, okay, I better do some research. Well, so I went and I looked through some books and I found a little bit. And one of the things that I found was Joe Humphreys' book. And Joe Humphreys has a picture of him holding a huge brown trout in there. And he's talking about fishing at night with a pusher fly. A pusher fly is basically a fly that pushes a lot of water so the fish can hone in on it and grab it. So these are giant wet fly, sort of woolly buggers with things that stick out to push the water and that. And I said, well, I've tried that, but I don't really like that. I'm more of a dry fly purist. Like I like to fish to a rising trout. And that's what I was doing on the Crowsnest and on the red deer. So, but I've still tried it, and that's where that's where my experience has been that these flies tend to get caught up in things. They're too big, and the casting is ugly because you're hearing these things go past your ears, and it's not as much fun as fishing a dry fly. So I did find a book called Night Fishing for Trout. It's by Jim Bashline. It's about fishing for trout at night in Pennsylvania. And he gives you all the same advice that I give you about knowing your stream, knowing where you are, how to get out of there and all that. But what he fishes with is huge wet flies, like Grizzly King or Professor or a couple others he mentions. And these are size 6 wet flies that he's fishing with. And basically it's across the stream and lead the flies across the water and hope that a fish takes them. And he has some nice pictures of trout. He catches trout. Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, didn't Bob Scambo do a couple of stories on night fishing?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, he did. And I looked at those as well. And it's pretty similar. Wet flies, woolly buggers, that type of thing. Fish them down and across. You know, hope that the fish come there. And I know where Bob fished. He fished on Prairie Creek. Yeah. And yeah, I've been there too. And yeah, that could be a lot of fun. But anyway, so I'm doing dry flies instead. So the first one I'm gonna show you is a fly I call the black fly. Okay, and you can tie this in whatever size you like, from about size 4 to size 18, if you like. And basically, it's just a simple parachute dry fly. But here's the thing: it's all black. Now, Don Anderson, when I told him about this fly, he said, but there are no all black mayflies. There are dark mayflies, but there are no all black mayflies. And I said, at night, it really doesn't matter what color of fly you use, okay? But a black one presents a very nice dark silhouette to the fish. And to you, there's moonlight, so you can see out there. If you're using your regular dry fly, it may get lost in the darkness. But if you've got the moon backing you up, you can actually see this fly. So basically what I do is I tie these flies in size 14 or 4 to 18. And this is a size 6, 94840 standard dry fly hook. So this will give you an idea about what I do with this fly. This is going to be a parachute, and my preferred material for the wings of these things is calf tail. So I've got some calf tail here. You can see it's green on top, but it's the black part that we want. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to cut off a bunch from here that is hopefully long fibers, because we want to make it parachute. And I cut off as close to the bone as I can. Now, first thing I want to do is I want to get rid of the short stuff, because there's always a bunch of short stuff in there. That's no good for anything. It just keeps you from stacking it properly. Okay. And then I'm going to put it in my stacker and stack it. Now, the conventional wisdom when I started tying years and years ago was that you cannot stack calf tail. Well, that's not true. You can stack calf tail, and you can get it pretty good. Maybe not perfect like you can with deer hair and other things, but So there's my thing. I can see there's at least one fiber that's wrong, and some of it's not quite there yet. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to stack it again. And I just bang it on here until I think I've got it. And you always start off with way more material than you think you'll need, because you're always losing stuff. Some of the stuff just doesn't work right. Some of it just doesn't go properly. So here we go. That's a little bit better. So now I've got this. I get it. And there's some that are sticking out weird. I don't want those. I'm going to measure this so that it's just a little bit longer than the hook shank. So make a collar there, tie it in good, and then twist this a little bit so that it's back on top. And then there's some fibers which didn't quite get tied in. So we're not going to worry about that. And then you see that there's a little bit of stuff left at the back that's sticking out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here at an angle, cut those off. Now, calf tail does not compress. It's one of those materials which you have to use glue on. Okay, there's no getting away from it. So I'm going to get out my glue. Are we still doing? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there a substitute for calf tail?
Sure. Macramé yarn. That's the substitute I would use. So if you wanted to,
if you want to base one.
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of the macramé yarn is Amazon. If it's got that sparkle to it, it is.
So I'm just going to put some glue right in the butts of these calf tails and on the thread wraps. And this is what's going to keep it on the hook. If you don't do this, then what you'll find is that you'll be casting and you'll see bits of calf tail coming off your fly. Okay, now there's a glob of glue here, which I'm just going to take and spread over the thread wraps. There. Now, I always shut up the glue container when I in between flies, because I'm sensitive to this, and it does tend to So I lift up the front. I'm going to build up a thread dam here in front. Then this is standard parachute stuff. And then I've got it there, and then I'm going to post this. So I'm going to go wrap around, wrap it up. About so far, and then wrap it down. Okay, and you see that this is really just sticking out all over the place, but that's okay. Doesn't hurt it. So there's my post. You notice that it's quite a bit taller than the hook shank is. That's because I like it like that. It sticks out a little bit more when you're fishing it. Okay. So back to here. I go back to the just over the barb of the hook, which I've previously pinched down, and I'm going to make a little thread bump there. And advance it just in front of the thread bump. And I use, for this one, I'm using moose tail or moose mane hair for the or the tails. You could use hackle fibers or whatever you want. I'm just going to pick off a bunch like that. And this is a package I bought at Denny's. It cost me, what did it cost me? $1.75 for this, and I've used probably most of it already. More than half, 2/3 of it. So again, I want to stack these to make those fibers nice and even. Is that going? Oh, okay. I see what you're doing. Skin. Okay, so I pull this off here. And a bunch of fibers fell out. But that's okay. I still have enough there. Yeah. I'll add this back in. So I'll just eyeball these. Okay, so again, longer than the hook shank. Put it at an angle like that to capture it, and then wrap back and spread these out. So that's there. Now, if you really want to be picky, you could go in here and you could cut off all the fibers back here that you don't like. But I don't worry about it. So I'm just gonna snip that off. Now, this moose mane is a compressible fiber. So when you tie it in, it stays tied in. So there, I'm going to go back up to there, and then I've got to find some black hackle to tie in. Okay, and for this, I had to go to an old Indian neck. It's got all sorts of things, but I couldn't find anything that would work for me in both in my other capes. They were all too small. So I'm gonna just take this. I'm gonna use 2 of these. Snip the where it starts to get fuzzy there. And I'm gonna try to put these together, and then angle these like this. So I grab them there, a couple wraps there, and a couple wraps here. Just lift it up. There. So now I've got that tied in. So take my thread back to the tail. And then for the dubbing, I'm going to use superfine dubbing. This is superfine black. I found that this is the best stuff for this sort of dubbing. And the reason why is that it's very, very fine material. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out a section of this. And put it on my thread. And this stuff, not only does it dub on to the thread very nicely, but it also sticks, and then you can slide it. So this allows you to put it on like that. So then I'm gonna take that. And it gives me a fairly robust body already, without having to do a lot of dubbing. So there I'm building up, you can see I'm building up a taper. And then this next batch, just a little bit of spit on there. And you can I go back and forth there. And see, that's a pretty nice dub body. Got a taper to it. It's got some and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the head of the fly. So just put that back. I rub that to the eye. Here, I'm just going to get a little bit more dubbing. Thanks, Bill. Okay, so there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to go like this towards me and let it hang there in front of the shank of the hook. Okay, so now the magic part is taking your hackle pliers, Griffin rotary hackle pliers. I've got two pieces of hackle here, so I'm going to grab them together, separate them out from the calf tail, starting up on top, and then wrapping to there, and then let them hang there. And then I'm going to take my thread. And I'm going to go in between there. So 2 wraps, tighten it up. And then this is where I do a wrap around the post rather than around the shank. So this is the technique that's used on the clink hammer flies. Okay, but I'm just changing the orientation of the wraps. So there, I've got it tight on there. So what I can do now is I can take my scissors and go in there and cut off both the hackle tips and the thread at the same time. So now, what I want to do is I'm turning it upside down. I'm looking, there's always going to be some of these hackle fibers which go in that. So there, that looks pretty good. So there's the top view of the fly, but this is the more important view. This is the bottom view. Okay, so you can see there's tail fibers sticking out there. There's these fibers sticking out here, and then these fibers sticking out here. So it's a parachute. It's going to sit lower on the water, just like parachutes do. These things, hackle fibers sticking out, they can be mistaken for wings. So this can be mistaken for a spant fly. And it also has this wing sticking up top so that you can see that there. So dark presents a strong silhouette at night. It's a sort of thing where you can see it in the dark if you've got a little bit of moonlight there. And the fish, more important, the fish can see it from beneath. Now the fish can see all your other flies as well. But this one, you can see, the fish can see. So that's why I do it all dark, all like that. So that's the first thing. Tie this one in sizes, like I said, size 4 all the way up to size 18, depending on what hatches are on. You can also do it as a regular dry fly with divided wings and hackle wrapped around the hook shank as normally. But the key is to make it dark so that it presents a strong silhouette at night. So that's the first one I'm going to get. That. Yes, Malcolm.
What would you think, Michael, of putting a little bit of flashaboo in the wings?
Yeah.
Catch some of that moonlight?
Yep. That would work too.
That would give the little bit of emphasis to the fly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You'd probably have to use some of the stiffer flashaboo, so it sticks up straight rather than being limp and falling over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something that goes into the wing.
Yep. Could easily do that. Yes, Jimmy?
I often wonder, you fly on the surface, the fish look up,
Yeah.
you see the same thing as we did, because everything is dark.
Yep.
So do they see color through that?
I don't think they see color at night. I think and that's why I like black, because you probably don't need the color. The color is one of the things that you might need during the day.
Joe and Henry.
Yeah.
You have any color you want.
Yep. Yeah. As long as it's Henry Ford, as long as it's black, you can.
So traditionally, I thought the hackle was the hook gap.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. With parachutes, you can oversize the hackle. Okay.
I go at least a gap and a half.
Yeah, a gap and a half is the standard thing,
I
but
read that book.
yeah, but
Well,
you,
no, it looks best and looks better.
yeah, but you can very easily use double the hackle size there. This was just the size that I could get off of this Indian neck.
Or you go bigger sometimes?
You could go bigger, yeah.
Oh, you're better off going bigger than smaller.
Yeah, with the parachute fly, gives it more things to keep it floating on the water. So that's the first fly I'm going to tie. Now the second one is called the red deer caddis. Now when I was fishing on the red deer, I would notice these small caddis. They're about size 14. And they would be buzzing along the water, or just sort of skimming along the water, egg laying or doing something. Anyway, so this is the sort of thing that interests me. And I saw a fish slashing at them. Fish would actually chase these caddis down and slash them. So again, I wanted something that I could see. So I'm going to make it all black, except I use peacock herl as the body. So this is done with the size 14 dry fly, because this is about the size that they were. You could tie it in a size 12 or a size 16 if you wanted. So I'm just going to get one of these size 14 hooks out of here. And I'm going to pinch the barb, as you should. And get it into the vise. So again, this is a very simple tie. I don't like tying flies that have a lot of materials or that take a long time to tie. So dress the body. And now I'm going to go for peacock herl. And I'm going to try 4 of these pieces. If there was more herl on them, I might go for only 3. But as it is, I'm going to try 4. Cut the tips off because that's the weakest part. And then I'm going to stretch that out so that it covers most of the shank of the hook. And then I'm going to tie that off. And this point here, this is where I'm going to complete the body and leave the front part for the wing. Okay, so I wrap this a bunch of times around the thread. You could also make a dubbing loop and do it that way, but this I find is good enough. And then I'm going to wrap this forward to there. And then I'm going to go back over top of this because caddis have fat bodies. So wrap it up to there, unwrap it a little bit. There. Then you can just snip that off. Okay, there's our fat body. Okay, next I'm going to need that. And what did I do with my? Okay, shouldn't have dropped that. I've got to find. No, there. Somewhere there is my
Automatic stacker.
Stacker, yeah.
Oh, it's on the chair, like sit up.
Oh, right there. Okay, got it. Good. Okay, so again, gonna go in here to the calf tail. I don't need as much this time, but I'm still gonna cut it off as close to the bone as I can get. And there's that. So I'm going to try to, there we go. I take off the short stuff. The short stuff is actually what keeps it from stacking properly. Okay. And this end, and now I can rough stack it by just pulling out the longer stuff. Putting it like that. And there. And actually that turned out pretty good. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do it like that without actually stacking it. So make a collar in there. And that's actually not too bad. Now, the wings have to sit out past the body. The body is always shorter than the wings on a caddis. Okay, so I'm going to put that there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to push these down a little bit so that I'm getting it A little bit more here. Just use my thumb, push it down. And there. I'm going to lift this up. And put some wraps in here. So I'm standing up there. Okay. Just twist that around just a little bit to get it. And then like the Deer Caddis, where you leave stubs at the front, I'm going to do that here. There. The glue is next. Yeah, you got to use the glue. Oops. So there. And then I'm going to push this back. Make some wraps in there. And whip finish it. Okay, now you could, if you wanted, put a hackle on there. And you know, let's see if I can get that. You notice that the calf tail is sticking out on the sides. Like I've pushed it down so that on both sides there's calf tail sticking out there. And if you wanted to, you could cut it off and do that. The one thing I want to make sure of is I want to make sure that I did not glue the eye of the hook. So I'm going to take this feather here and try to cut it to a point. And then make sure that it's not, the eye of the hook is not glued in. This is not. This is why my eyes are going on me. So. Okay. There. Pull that through there. Just to make sure that there's no glue in the eye. That's a trick that was taught to me many years ago by Barry White. So there's the completed fly. It's sort of ugly. It's not a real pretty fly, but it does work. You can drag it. Pass it around. You can drag it across the surface of the river. You can put a riffle hitch on it. That is, throw after you tie it on, throw an extra half hitch on there so that it cocks the fly into an odd direction, and that'll help sometimes. And you can also just toss it straight out and let it swing downstream. And sometimes the fish will take it with a slashing rise. Sometimes they'll just take it, sip it gently. Or sometimes you just want to dead drift it and just give it a little twitch every now and again, like the sudden inch. Leonard Wright has a book fishing the dry fly as a living insect, which he talks about the sudden inch, which you just give it just that 1 inch little pull as it's dead drifting on the stream to indicate to the trout that it's a live insect there. And that works pretty good. Now, the next fly I'm going to tie is something that I call the Crowsnest Solution. Okay, and the Crowsnest Solution is one of those things that I use late at night on the crow's nest. Okay, when the fish are rising, I can hear them rising. They're rising to something. I want to tie on something really small, but unfortunately my eyes aren't good enough to actually get the fly through the eye, or the tippet through the eye of the hook. I've been in this situation many times where I've been fishing. I know I got to tie on something small. It's got to be something really small, but I can't get the tippet through the eye of the hook. I'm just, and I'm struggling. I've got my flashlight on. I've got my best reading glasses on. I just can't do it. So what I do is I make up some of these rigs ahead of time.
Mike?
Yeah.
Get yourself one of those cheap plastic jeweler's rigs.
Yeah, yep. But I'm standing on.
They'll fit in your pocket.
Yeah, I know, but I'm standing on the stream. Okay. So what I do is I do this. I rig these things up ahead of time. Okay. You could use one of these things, which is like a walleye rig. Okay, but the where you put the hook on here is way too big for the stuff I want. So here's what I use. I get a piece of box board, and I tie on at home at my leisure a piece of 6X tippet with a loop on it, and then I loop to loop this thing through the night. So just pass that around. And there are some tiny flies on there. Yeah.
I was supposed to go with that new headlamp with 650 rooms.
Well, yeah, it doesn't make that eye any bigger.
Doesn't make the eye any bigger. Yeah. So I'm going to do this one on a size 22 dry fly hook, which may mean, which may mean that I'm going to have some problems here. One of the problems I have with putting these tiny little hooks in the vise is I've got to put my eyes on so I can see.
Michael's just a masochist.
Yeah. So one of the things which happens is that sometimes I'll spit, the vise will spit the hook. And then you've got a tiny little hook someplace in your room, in the carpet, where someone is eventually going to find it.
That's usually the wife.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can see the hook in there. That's a size 22 hook. I'm just going to take a sip of water before I attempt this. Okay. That's 2/6 thread. Here's this is 12-aught thread that I've been using here. Okay. You can get even finer thread. But So anyway, so I was talking to Don Anderson about my problem with things. I was trying to go down to like a size 18 or something. That's, it's a reasonable size to try at night. Your size 12 is not working, so why not a size 18? Give it something small. But Dawn told me that what they're eating at night is caddis, tiny little caddis. So I came up with this pattern to do there, okay? And I am not going to do any body or anything fancy with it. I just make a body out of my tying thread. And this is one of the things that you learn is that you go back and forth. You're putting a few more wraps at the front than at the rear. Again, we're trying to make a sort of a fat little body here. Leaving a little bit of room at the eye of the hook. So there's my fat body. Now, if I was to use calf tail, you have to sort of pre-measure the calf tail. You have to make it just so long, right? Yeah, that's easy to do on a 14 hook, but on a 22 hook, it's not very easy to do that. So what I prefer to use here instead is macramé yarn. Now you can use white. I've used white on the things on there, but you can also use black. But I don't have any black. I just have some brown. So really, I'm just going to tie off or cut off about a little hank of this stuff. You don't have to stack it. You don't have to do anything like that. You just tie it on. So there it is. Choose. So, okay. So you just cut it off to where you think it should be. And we'll finish it.
Finished?
Well, almost.
See, I like that.
Yeah. This is why I like it, because it's nice and easy. Okay. So now the wing needs to be a little bit longer than the body, so just stretch that out like that. And this is going to be sticking out in all sorts of different directions. So I'm going to just take that. And that's the fly. Again, what you're doing with this fly is you're tossing it out there, you're listening for the slurps. And when you hear a slurp where you think your fly is, because you can't see it, this is too tiny, you just cannot see it. And you've seen the other ones that I've got on there. You just gently lift the rod. And if something connects, then you're onto a fish. If not, then you just let it sit there a little longer. Gently lift the rod when you hear a slurp. Sometimes you're surprised. Sometimes you get a real nice fish. Sometimes, the fish is not there. The fish is on something else. But if you want to try something a little bit exciting, go fishing at night in a place that you know really well. You know where the holes are. You know where the fish are usually hang out, and you don't have to worry too much about getting back or any of those things. The spot, Bill knows this spot well. Down below Ross's cabin on the Crow's Nest. Before there were any cabins there, I used to go fish there. I'd go down to that pool. I'd fish in the evening, late at night.
Works.
Yeah. Yes, Jimmy.
I had experience of that pool.
Yep.
Last fall.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yep.
when they came out.
Yep.
Look everywhere.
Everywhere there were fish rising. Yeah, yeah.
In afternoon, they thought that road was there. There's
Yep.
no fish in it.
You thought there were no fish at all.
Yeah.
But in the evening, late at night, almost dark or at darkness, they're there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Bill told me the story.
Swallows are good too. Swallows are good too.
Yeah, yeah. If there's swallows on the in the air going around picking up stuff off the water, you know, if they don't fly around if there's no bugs there. There's bugs there. Yep. And then I see Jimmy has to take it over to actually look at in the light at it. Because old eyes, you know.
I never went that small. I think I was 18 or 18.
Yep, 18, you can use 18s, you can go smaller though.
And I was surprised when we hit.
Yep, yep.
How can you see that?
How can they see that? But they do. They see it.
Your eyesight's better than yours, actually.
Yeah,
It must be.
it is better.
When